Here at Auto Express, we love the Mazda MX-5. Thanks to its blend of wind-in-the-hair thrills, sharp looks, great value for money and hugely engaging handling, the Mazda has driven off with our Roadster of the Year title more times than most of us have had hot dinners. Quite simply, few cars deliver as many driver thrills for so little money. The fact it's also well equipped, reasonably practical and every bit as easy to live with as a Super Mini is merely the icing on the cake. There aren't many cars that we'd actually hand over our own hard-earned cash for, but this is one of them.
Now, the MX-5, it's the world's best-selling two-seater sports car, and it's not hard to see why. So for nearly 30 years, this car has set the standard for affordable, open-air thrills. And this fourth generation car is arguably the best yet. So we're in the 1.5 litre, the entry-level car. Now, it's only got 129 horsepower. There is a larger 2-litre car with about 160 horsepower, but Mazda's engineers actually developed the MX-5 around this smaller engine because with this engine the weight dips below the magic 1,000 kilogram figure. So this is a proper lightweight little sports car, and it doesn't take long once you're in it to just realise how involving it is. You don't have to be going fast, and already I'm feeling sort of getting feedback through the wheel, and the ride is a little bit firm, but it's not uncomfortable, but it's just letting you know what's underneath the tyres. Now, the first thing with this car you notice is it's not actually all that fast. I mean, we figured 0 to 60 takes around 8 seconds. That's kind of warm hatch pace, but this car isn't about outright speed. So this little 1.5 litre engine, you need to work it hard, but when you do, it really rewards. So third gear, 4,000 RPM, 5,000 RPM, 6,000, and then it starts to sing. You get this sporty little rasp, and it takes it all the way to 7.5, and then, oh, you get this beautiful snickety little gear lever for the 6-speed gearbox. It's a cliche, but it's like a rifle bolt. You just use your fingers to slot it through. There's barely any resistance, but it's beautifully precise. But the defining characteristic of this car is the handling. So if we come up to a corner now, you just pitch it in and it responds instantly. And just a little lift of the throttle, you can feel the balance changing. Get back on the throttle, and again, the car adjusts its line. It's so interactive. And of course, in these slippery conditions, yeah, it's rear-wheel drive, and with everything off, this car doesn't have a limited slip differential, but yeah, it gets quite sideways, but that's all part of the fun. It's just such a lovely little car, so much fun.
However, if there's one caveat to the MX-5's stellar performance, it's that for the past decade or so, it's faced virtually no competition. But that's all set to change with the arrival of this, the Fiat 124 Spider. Now, if there's one company that knows a thing or two about affordable soft-top two-seaters, it's Fiat. The original 124 Spider made its debut in 1966, over 2 decades before the first MX-5. It has been over 10 years since Fiat had a small roadster on its books, so it has called in some expert help for this new model. In fact, lurking under the latest 124 Spider's subtly retro styling is, well, it's a Mazda MX-5.
Right, so now we're in the Fiat, and well, you might struggle to tell the difference. There's a Fiat badge here on the steering wheel, and well, that's about it. I mean, there are some higher quality materials. The door cards have changed a little, but in every other respect, this is pretty much the Mazda MX-5. It feels a tiny bit more upmarket, but it's not enough that it makes a huge difference. And the same goes for the driving experience, because underneath the skin, as we've already discussed, it's a Mazda MX-5. The biggest difference is under the bonnet. So where the Mazda has its zingy little naturally aspirated 1.5 litre engine, the Fiat has a 1.4 litre turbocharged unit. With 138 horsepower, it's around 10 horsepower more powerful. More importantly though, it's got 240 newton meters of torque, which compares to 150 in the Mazda, and that means it just feels quicker most of the time. So on the road, there's a little bit of lag below 2,000 RPM as the turbo spins up, but now we're in 5th gear, 2,500 revs, put my foot down, and you just get that push in the back, and it accelerates with much more vigour than the Mazda. It doesn't have the same top end, and it sounds a bit harsh when you really rev the engine out, but frankly you don't need to, because there's so much more performance available lower down. It just makes it easier to use every day on the road. It's not necessarily as satisfying as the Mazda when you're on your favourite back road and you're just driving for fun, but for most of the time the ability just to stay in 5th or 6th on the motorway and squeeze the throttle and just let the torque carry along, it gives the car a more relaxing feel. Fiat have adjusted the suspension settings a little. Bizarrely, they claim they've made it stiffer, but actually it makes the car feel a little more settled on the road than the MX-5. It means you don't get that same roll over the rear axle as you turn into the corner. But frankly, the differences are minute, and this car is still a riot to drive. And with the extra torque, you can use the engine's performance to alter the car's balance through the corner. The steering's a tiny bit heavier, but again, we're talking about degrees here. Again, the gear shift, a little more weight to it. It's not quite as slick and precise and positive as the Mazda unit, but I mean, really, it's lovely to use. This is a fun little car, it really is. The similarities to the Mazda continue with the hood because, well, it's the same car, so you get the same fabric covering, which is really easy to use. Literally catch, fling it back, and then press it down in the catch, all done with one hand and on the move. Again, starts to rain, same thing, one catch, flip it over, and then catch, windows up, and we're weather tight. Perfect. And while the Fiat may be a little easier to live with day to day than the Mazda, it's still got that same beautifully balanced rear wheel drive layout. So that means switch off the stability control and you can just pitch it in and enjoy some slides. Again, there's no limited slip differential, so it'll just spin up an inside wheel, but there's still enormous fun to be had. Oh yes, yes, oh yes, oh, that was quite exciting, wasn't it? This car just loves to be driven, and you don't have to be going flat out to enjoy this balance, but it will when provoked. Slide around a bit.
So, which of these closely related roadsters takes the win? Well, that depends on what you want your compact sports car to do. For most people, most of the time, the turbocharged Fiat offers the same performance as the 2-litre Mazda, but with a little more comfort and a slightly lower price tag. However, if you place driving thrills above all else, then the zingy and involving 1.5-litre MX-5 is hard to beat. Ultimately, if you love cars and driving, then you should rejoice that both the Fiat and Mazda exist. To watch a Mazda MX-5 track battle, click the video on the left, and to watch a review of the Fiat 124 Spider, click the video on the right. Click the play icon to watch our latest video, and click on our logo to subscribe.